Marcus Hayes wiped the sweat from his brow as he pushed the industrial mop across the gleaming marble floors of Apex Tower, one of Manhattan's most prestigious corporate buildings. His shift didn't start until midnight, but he'd arrived early. He always did. The extra time meant he could finish by 5 a.m. and still make it home, before his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, woke up for school. Being both mom and dad meant there was no room for mistakes, no space for being late. Every decision, every sacrifice was for her. The building was nearly empty at this hour, save for the occasional executive burning the midnight oil. Marcus had worked here for 3 years, and in that time, he'd become invisible, just another face in the shadows, cleaning up after people who would never know his name. He didn't mind. Honest work was honest work, and it paid for Lily's asthma medication, her school supplies, and the small apartment in Queens that he'd turned into a home filled with love, even if it lacked everything else. That night started like any other. Marcus was on the 42nd floor, emptying trash bins from the conference rooms, when he heard it, a soft, desperate sob echoing from the women's restroom. He froze, his hand still gripping the plastic bag. Years of working nights had taught him to mind his business. But something about that sound pierced through his usual boundaries. It wasn't just sadness. It was the kind of anguish that came from a soul being crushed. "Hello? Ma'am, are you okay?" he called out gently, standing a respectful distance from the door. The crying stopped abruptly. Silence hung in the air for a long moment before a shaky voice responded. "I'm fine. Please, just go away." Marcus should have listened. He should have walked away, finished his shift, and gone home. But he thought of Lily, of the nights she'd cried herself to sleep after her mother abandoned them, and how desperately he'd wished someone had been there for him during those dark hours. "Ma'am, I don't mean to intrude, but you don't sound fine." "I'm Marcus, the night janitor. I'm going to leave a bottle of water right here by the door, and some tissues from the supply closet. You don't have to come out or talk to me, but whatever you're going through, I promise you it won't last forever. I know that probably sounds empty right now, but I've been in some dark places, and somehow the sun still came up." He set down the items and started to walk away when the door opened. A woman in her late 30s emerged. Her expensive suit wrinkled, mascara streaked down her cheeks. Even in her disheveled state, Marcus could tell she was someone important. There was an air of authority about her that couldn't be hidden, even by tears. "Thank you," she whispered, accepting the water with trembling hands. "You didn't have to do that. We all need somebody sometimes," Marcus replied with a gentle smile. "Bad day at work?" She laughed bitterly. "You could say that. I just found out my CFO has been embezzling millions from my company. Investors are threatening to pull out. The board wants my resignation. And to top it all off, my ex-husband is trying to use this scandal to get full custody of my son." Her voice cracked. 20 years of building something from nothing, and it's all crumbling in one night. Marcus didn't know what to say to that. He was a janitor who worried about making rent, not someone who could comprehend millions of dollars or corporate boards. But he understood loss. He understood the feeling of everything falling apart. "My wife left 2 years ago," he found himself saying. "Walked out on me and our daughter without a backwards glance. I thought my world had ended. Some days, I still think I'm failing at this whole single dad thing. But you know what I learned? People remember how you handle the fall more than they remember the fall itself. Your son, he doesn't need a perfect mom. He needs a mom who gets back up." The woman stared at him for a long moment, something shifting in her eyes. "What's your name again?" "Marcus Hayes, ma'am." "Eleanor Crest," she replied, extending her hand. "And thank you, Marcus, truly." They talked for 20 minutes. Eleanor told him about her company, Crest Industries, a tech conglomerate she'd built from a small startup in her garage. Marcus told her about Lily, about their tiny apartment, about his dreams of saving enough to send his daughter to college someday. It was the kind of conversation that transcended social boundaries. Just two human beings sharing their burdens in the quiet hours of the night. When Eleanor finally left, Marcus returned to his mop, thinking nothing more of the encounter. But the next morning, he received a call from building management. His supervisor's voice was cold and clinical. "Mr. Hayes, we're terminating your employment effective immediately. You violated protocol by engaging with a tenant after hours. Security footage shows you loitering on the 42nd floor. Your final check will be mailed. Marcus felt his world tilt. But I was just helping someone who was upset. I didn't do anything wrong. The tenant filed a report. We can't have employees harassing our clients. Consider yourself lucky we're not pressing charges. The line went dead. Marcus stood in his kitchen, staring at his phone in disbelief. Eleanor had reported him, after everything they'd talked about. The betrayal stung worse than the job loss. He'd been foolish to think that for one moment. Those boundaries between their worlds had actually dissolved. The next 3 weeks were the hardest of Marcus's life. He applied to dozens of jobs but kept hitting dead ends. Bills piled up. Lily's medication was running low. He started selling furniture piece by piece, trying to keep them afloat. His daughter noticed. Of course, kids always do, and the guilt of not being able to provide for her properly ate away at him like acid. Then, on a gray Thursday morning, there was a knock at his door. A woman in a business suit stood there with a manila envelope. Marcus Hayes? I'm from Crest Industries. Ms. Crest would like to see you. There's a car waiting downstairs. Marcus almost closed the door in her face, but curiosity, or maybe desperation, made him follow. The car took him to Apex Tower, but this time he rode the elevator to the top floor. Eleanor's office was breathtaking, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire city. Eleanor stood by the window, and when she turned, her eyes were full of tears again. But this time, they weren't tears of despair. Marcus, I owe you an explanation and an apology, she began. I never reported you. My CFO did. He saw the security footage and used it to try to discredit me further, claiming I was having inappropriate relationships with staff. I didn't know until yesterday when I finally regained control of my company. The embezzlement charges stuck. The board backed me, and I've spent the last week cleaning house. Marcus's head was spinning. I don't understand. Why am I here? Because that night, you gave me something I'd forgotten existed. Genuine, human compassion with no agenda. You lost your job for showing kindness. But more than that, you reminded me why I started this company in the first place. Not for profit margins or stock prices, but to create something meaningful, to help people. She slid a folder across her desk. I want to offer you a position as Director of Facilities and Community Outreach for Crest Industries. It comes with a full salary, benefits, health care for both you and Lily, and a housing stipend. But more importantly, you'll help me redesign how this company treats every single employee. From the mailroom to the boardroom, Marcus couldn't speak. The salary figure on the paper before him was more than he'd made in 3 years of night shifts. Why? He finally managed. Because character isn't about what you do when people are watching, Marcus. It's about what you do when you think no one important is looking. You saw a suffering human being, not a billionaire CEO. You risked nothing for everything, expecting nothing in return. That's the kind of person I want helping me rebuild this company's soul. 6 months later, Marcus stood in a sunlit apartment in a safe neighborhood with good schools, watching Lily play with her new friends in the courtyard below. His daughter's laughter drifted through the window. She was thriving, healthy, happy. At Crest Industries, he'd implemented programs for childcare, fair wages, and support systems for working parents. Eleanor had become not just his boss, but a true friend and mentor. His phone buzzed with a text from Eleanor. Board meeting went great. They love the new Employee Wellness Initiative. You've changed this company, Marcus. Thank you for changing me first. Marcus smiled, thinking back to that night with a mop in his hands and a broken woman in a bathroom. He'd been taught his whole life that success meant climbing higher, earning more, becoming someone important. But standing there, watching his daughter bloom, he finally understood the truth. The most powerful thing any of us can do is simply see each other's humanity and respond with kindness. Sometimes the smallest gesture, a bottle of water, a few words of comfort, the willingness to care when you don't have to, can change everything. He'd helped a billionaire CEO find her strength again. In return, she'd helped him see that he'd always been far more than just a janitor. He'd been exactly what the world needed more of, someone who gave without calculating the return, who loved without conditions, who showed up for strangers as if they were family. That evening, as Marcus tucked Lily into bed in their new home, she whispered, "Daddy, are we going to be okay now?" He kissed her forehead, his heart full to bursting. "Sweetheart, we've always been okay. But now we're going to be more than okay." We're going to help make sure other people are okay too. And in that moment, Marcus Hayes understood that he'd never really lost anything that night. He'd simply invested his kindness in the universe. And the universe, in its own mysterious way, had paid him back in ways he never could have imagined.